Guys, we finally have some early ADP, and we have two young studs battling for first-round supremacy. Are we going with Elly De La Cruz or Gunnar Henderson in our early first-round picks? We'll discuss that and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ahne, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ahne. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode, or if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, but most importantly to Matt and I, and important to you this time of year, join us on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, you're going to get in-depth personalized experience through text message alerts going right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute podcast. And if you are interested in joining us on Subtext, the link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And guess what, guys? You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And all right, folks, it's that time of year. We're getting real close. Football's wrapping up, and, baseball season's getting close, and we have some very, very early ADP. We've been sprinkling it in here and there, as we were doing some of our episodes recently. But today we're actually going to deep dive. We're going to try and get through the first round of early ADP and just talk about where all of these players are going, if we agree, disagree. So Matt, my brother, why don't you hop in and take it away?
All right, no doubt. So ADP goes like this, just so everybody knows. And this is, prefaced with, 5x5 head-to-head roto. And essentially, this is for this ADP, it's showing that Shohei Ohtani is both DH and SP. Dom and I tend to like to have him as a separate player, so there's going to be a little discrepancy for that, but we'll cover this all. But the ADP looks like this. Shohei Ohtani at 1, Aaron Judge at 2, Bobby Witt Jr. at 3, Elly De La Cruz at 4, Jose Ramirez at 5, Juan Soto at 6, 7 is Gunnar Henderson, 8 is Kyle Tucker, 9 is Mookie Betts, 10 is Fernando Tatis, 11 is Corbin Carroll, and 12 is Julio Rodriguez. Now, obviously, this is ADP. It's across, what do we got here? Drafts are going right now. RT Sports, NFBC, and Fantrax. Those are the platforms that have had, at least enough, drafts where they can kind of cultivate and combine and create an ADP.
And real quick, shout out to Fantasy Pros. That's where we're getting the information from. If you guys want to follow along as we're doing this, Fantasy Pros pulls together all three of those platforms, ADP, and just syncs it together.
Yeah, it really gives you a good perspective of where the community is as a whole, so that when you're going to do your drafts, you can kind of see like all different kinds of platforms and things like that. Especially, you can't really reinvent the wheel when it comes to 5x5 or just straight up roto leagues, because it's pretty much you're going after the same kind of stats. Whereas like with points, it definitely varies based off of your platforms and your scoring systems. So
yes.
let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Now, again, I'm going to preface this. Dom and I genuinely don't have, Shohei as the same person. Just because, it just kind of creates a little bit more, and we feel he should be two different players. So let's get into it. So for me, Shohei Ohtani would not be in those kind of platforms, number one. In a league where he is the same person, he is undoubtedly number one consensus overall. After that, it becomes a little bit more just debatable, right? I don't think he's one. And we'll talk about Shohei. We'll throw him up at the top when he is different, only because, you look at it where, he's a UT only, which means that, you got to really hit and be on point with your team construction, especially with drafting a UT only player right at the top of the draft. And you got to wait 24 picks for your next pick. So that means you're going to lose out on all the top end outfielders, all the top end, in between players. And then you're going to come back and you're going to get like the 24th best player. And that's where it's kind of rough. You have not filled out a single positional player. And it just becomes a little bit more of like, okay, I really got to be selective. I can't really take any chances now. Now, yes, Shohei Ohtani's absolutely amazing, right? The season he had was incredible. 50 bombs, almost 50 stolen bases, had a phenomenal batting average. I know this. And he's a great bat. You'll be lucky to have him. Do not get me wrong. This is no shade on him. This is a matter of team construction as to why I'm a little bit more conservative. And I prefer to have him more on anywhere from pick 5-ish to later. That is where I'd feel comfortable because there's a quick swing around in terms of that where I can kind of get a better player and a higher tiered, because our rankings are tiered based at a different positional player. And that's kind of where it is. Drafting him 1 overall, really put yourself at a deficit and then constructing your team.
Yeah, man, it's tough with Ohtani. I'll say this: if you're a newer fantasy baseball player and you haven't been doing this for a long time, I don't think taking Ohtani at the top is a very reliable strategy, as for all the reasons that Matt just mentioned. But if you're a seasoned fantasy baseball player, and if you're also subscribed to us on Subtext and you have Matt and I's rankings and our help, I think there's a beneficial way of taking Ohtani with one of your first picks. I think he's a very secure player. He doesn't really get injured very often. You know what you're getting. He's aging like fine wine so far in his career. He's going to be 31 next year, so he still has time to, be dominant. But with the 54 homers last year, 59 steals, 310 batting average, 134 runs, 130 RBIs, and the fact that he plays for the Dodgers is, a great reason to love him. Matt, I'm not as low on him as you. I think he belongs in that top 3. I think Ohtani, Judge, and Witt is a very strong top 3 there. And I'm not going to, change those 3 up. You can kind of shake them up, take them in any order you want, because honestly, I could see Bobby Witt having a career year next season. And then we all know Aaron Judge could go out any season and hit 60 home runs, steal 10 bags, have 120 plus homers and RBIs and hit 300. We've seen him do it before. Everybody after that raises a little bit more question marks as we start to go down these rankings. So I can see if you're a seasoned vet taking Ohtani up top and then just being able to fill out your roster strategically as you go along. But if you haven't been doing this for a long time, I would recommend to pass on Ohtani and then take the Aaron Judge or the Bobby Witt, fill one of those tougher positions like outfield or shortstop, and things might work out a little bit better for you there. Matt, let's move on to the next guy then, right? Let's talk some Aaron Judge. Kind of just gave him a little bit of a mention there. Coming off the board right now is number 2 overall pick across all of these platforms. NFBC kind of switches up. Bobby Witt goes 2 and Aaron Judge goes 3. But you know what? Overall, Aaron Judge number 2 pick. He's solid, man. Had stayed healthy last year for the most part. Had a really strong year. We wanted to see that from him after, in 2023, he was a little bit dinged up, and, that injury, talk comes back, and, everyone's like, oh, well, can he just stay on the field for us, right? And, like I said, in 2024, Judge did, and he had a very, very good season, 58 home runs, 144 RBIs. He stole 10 bags. He hit 322. He had 122 runs, and he actually played 158 games. You love to see it. He will be 33 this upcoming season, and, the Yankees have talked about, moving him around. Maybe he gets some games in at first base this year, with the Yankees losing Rizzo, and we're not really sure what the Yankees are going to do at first base. Even he played 41 games at DH last year, which was a career high. I think the Yankees are going to try and protect Judge. I think they're going to try and keep their big money guy healthy. And I think we see more dominance. I think we see another good season, 50 plus homers, 100 plus RBIs, strong batting average. I think Judge is a safe number 1 overall outfielder.
Yeah, and I think the Yankees, I think, figured something out with Judge too, right? So they figured out how to keep him healthy and on the field, and that's just been a struggle, right? Even though I think Judge is still, even if he plays, 110 games, which we've seen what those seasons look like, elite still power numbers, looks like any other player played, a full season. It's just Aaron Judge is incredible. It's really just a matter of debate of how you want to construct your team, especially at the top here. So like the next guy here, Bobby Witt Jr. versus Aaron Judge, it's like, okay, I won't be mad at either pick. It's just really where you want the advantage of going into your draft, right? Do you want the stolen base upside and be able to go and, have advantage where the guy still hits 30 home runs, which is elite power still, but also have the ability to have an advantage at the stolen base category? That is where you got to make that decision, because everything else, Judge pretty much just laps Bobby Witt around. For me, I'm going to take Judge. You sit there and you kind of look at, okay, where am I going to get the most bang for my buck? It's Aaron Judge, I think. Anybody that can hit anywhere from 50 home runs, 40 home runs on a half season or a 3/4 season to a full season where they're, dancing around 60. I think that's a better pick, in my opinion. And I'll take the stolen base aspect because I can get that later in the draft. by drafting somebody like that, and plus two, getting an outfielder like Aaron Judge definitely allows me to be a little bit more picky when I want to pick an outfielder, and I don't have to feel like I have to go out and get one. And that's kind of the advantage of getting Aaron Judge. Whereas Bobby Witt Jr., I want to break him down. He had a phenomenal year where like I had Bobby Witt Jr. and I'm like, man, that was a great year. Like we all saw this coming, right? Like, 636 at bats, 125 runs, 45 doubles, 11 triples, 32 bombs, 109 ribs, 31 stolen bases, batted .332, an OBP of 389, a slug of 588, and an OPS of 977.
He killed
it. Like, what a great season. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be one of the best players in the league for the next 5-6 years, easy.
If not more.
Right. Like, he is the new Trey Turner. Like, let's let it that way, right? Trey Turner, we drafted him
with
at the
power
top.
too. Trey Turner never had 30 home run power, man.
Right. I think he did it once in his career.
Yeah, Bobby Witt's so good, man.
He's so good. And there's still another level too. I mean, the kid is this is the scary part. He's 24. He hasn't even hit his prime age yet, where the power can come in full send, and then we're talking 35, 40 home runs, I think. Kid is just so good. And such a great dude too. Like, I follow him on Instagram. I love the kid. But yeah. Coming up next, you'll get Dom's half of the story of whether or not you should be drafting Bobby Witt Jr. or that, and then also, too, why he likes him so much. Coming up next. All right. And nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like unraveling quality and taste of Omaha steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 with a promo code of MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steaks experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift, thoughtfully curated gifts packaged starting only at $89.99. From legendary steaks, mouth-watering desserts, and more. Save 50% off site-wide during cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code MLB and $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with their promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply. And guys, also too, I love Omaha Steaks. I have a smoker. I'm a big smoker. Also too, I just love steak. Their burgers are slamming. You always get that in the packs, and their apple fritters, absolutely bonkers. Like, I am an avid Omaha Steak guy. I've been ordering from them years before this show. They are phenomenal. Omaha Steaks, check them out. And introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Now, this offseason, you're not going to want to miss our tier-based rankings from, redraft leagues, dynasty, prospect, so much more on those regards, plus our sleepers, breakout busts, all those lists that you can't get in this 30-minute podcast. So Dom and I are a little nuts. When we do our rankings, we go deep. You only get so much that we can do in 30 minutes. And on top of that, when we do a bust or a sleepers episode, we just get the big hitters and the guys that we either agree on. But Dom and I go about 20, 30 names deep of who we're trying to avoid and get. And you're not going to get that here because we don't have enough time. We got to get the information out. So check us out. Minimal cost. And you also get a free 2 weeks. So you get to choose whether you want to stay or not. And I promise you're going to want to stay. So check us out. Links in the description below. But Dom, without further ado, let me know. What are you thinking about Mr. Bobby Witt Jr.?
Yeah, I feel like I already let the cat out of the bag. I love Bobby Witt. I'm in agreement. I will say this about the strategy of drafting Bobby Witt or Aaron Judge. I like what you said there, Matt. There's deals on the board later on with the new rule, with the bigger bases, and the limiting of the amount of times you're able to actually throw over to first base. It really has expanded steals. So I want to get into position scarcity, right? Their shortstop kind of goes deep this year. Shortstop, I'm looking at my rankings right now, and I see my first 16, 17 guys. And honestly, I'm not really mad at a lot of those names. But then on the other side, when I start looking at outfield, if you don't get an outfielder early, like Matt said, you're waiting a long time. If you have to take Aaron Judge 1 or 2, you're waiting a long time to come back. And then by that time, you look back at those names and you're probably down to maybe outfielder 16, 17, 18 at that point. And it's just like you have to jump in there, because if you don't take one of those guys and you wait to get another outfielder, let's say you jump in at a different position, it's just really not going to work out well. I'm a big advocate in the recent 3-4 years of getting an elite outfielder on your team round 1 or 2. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself in a tough spot. But I don't really want to spend too much time more. Go jump in, Matt. Yeah, go for it, brother.
I got a question for you, because
Shoot.
obviously our rankings don't match up with ADP.
Yeah.
Here's the question for you: Kyle Tucker or Bobby Witt Jr.?
Oof, that's a tough one. You put me on the spot there with that one. That's a really close one. And Kyle Tucker's going too low. While Matt has his name up here, we could talk a little about Kyle Tucker. Right now, if you're drafting, Kyle Tucker's coming off the board as the 8th overall player, and I think that's a little bit crazy. Tucker was on pace to have a career year last year before he got hurt. He's not really an injury-prone guy. Hasn't dealt with too many injuries in his career. So I think it was more of a fluke thing than anything else. He's 6'4". He's 212. He plays for the Houston Astros. The Astros are, I think they're going to be a better team they were this year than last year. If you were putting me on the spot right now and I really, really had to choose, I might lean Tucker a little bit. Especially because in points leagues formats, the plate discipline is so good on Kyle Tucker's end. He's made such an improvement in that area over the last 2 years that I really think if he would have played a full season last year, he would have put up Bobby Witt type numbers. Maybe not on the batting average end, but I think we would have seen a little bit more power. He would have seen closer to 38, 40 home runs. He had 11 steals through 78 games, so you're looking at maybe a 25-ish steal pace. He hit 289 over that time, had 56 walks to 54 strikeouts. So yeah, I mean, if you're putting me on the spot, if I have the 3rd pick overall, I don't know if I'm going to go Tucker that high, but if I'm sitting at the barrel 4 or 5, I think Tucker should be taken off the board at that point. It's a tough debate. It really is, Matt. And I honestly, I'm teetering. I'm going back and forth here because they're both great players, but the outfield scarcity really does make it an actual debate, to be honest.
Yeah, well, there's that also too. I look at what Kyle Tucker's done year over year, and this last year, even though he got hurt, his average exit velocity went up. A lot of the power numbers went up. That's indicating that he has power upside. Now, he may not have the stolen base capability where he can get, those 40, 50 home runs, stolen base seasons. But I think Kyle Tucker is going to round one season where he has 35 to 40 home runs with the 30 stolen bases, because that's pretty much a lock. He has elite sprint speed, and just the mindset where he's going to be that guy. And, Kyle Tucker, I think, started to show that. I think if he would have played a full season, he'd be up there at top of this list without a doubt. It wouldn't even be a question. Him at 9 is a steal.
Hands down. Matt, real quick, do you know what I do want to say, though? Do you know who I'd absolutely take Kyle Tucker over? And I think this is might shock people. Okay. Elly De La Cruz. I would definitely take Tucker over Elly De La Cruz. Elly De La Cruz coming off the board right now, 4th overall. There's just so many question marks. Yes, does Elly De La Cruz have Ronald Acuna light upside? Of course he does. I don't know if we're seeing it this year. He's 23 years old. He had his ups and downs last year. Yes, he did have 67 steals, but he hit 259, 25 homers. He did have 100 runs. I don't know if everything's going to be where you need it to be for him to deliver at pick number 4 overall. As to where if Kyle Tucker literally just does what he normally does, he's easily, a 1st round pick, hands down. I think the downside of Elly is, even when you look at some of the underlying stuff, the batting average could go the other way, right? If he really doesn't improve the plate discipline, which was absolutely horrid last year, it was 70 walks or 69 walks to 218 strikeouts. I know you can make a living with that, but you can't make a living with that when you're having trouble hitting breaking stuff, where they're figuring you out and they can develop a plan on how to pitch to you. And Elly De La Cruz is a student of the game. I know he will put his head down and do the work that he needs to do to get there. But should we be paying pick 4 for Elly De La Cruz when literally we can get Kyle Tucker after him, we can get Jose Ramirez after him, we can get Juan Soto after him? And I just think those guys are more proven, and you're playing the lottery ticket game with Elly De La Cruz.
Brilliant take. And you're going to find out my opinion of whether I like Elly De La Cruz or Juan Soto coming up after this.
Folks, get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Matt, you were kind of going into it there. I think let's move on to somebody else here. Gave a little take on Elly. Juan Soto. Are we doing Juan Soto over Elly?
Me personally, yes.
I agree.
I'm going to touch on Elly just a hair. So Elly is great. Everything Dom said was absolutely right, and I'm on the same page. It's the most riskiest pick with the most upside, though, right? So The problem is what you're doing with Elly is drafting him this high as you're drafting him at his ceiling, and that means you're going to draft him here. You're going to have to get ROI, which is return on investment. And there's a likelihood that it may not. And that is the scariest part. Guys that strike out at that kind of rip is overboard. He's almost striking out at 40%. You sitting at 29 to 32%, like Aaron Judge kind of lives at, I could totally see you having really good batting average. We need to see that positive regression in that, which then also may lead to less in certain other categories, right? So maybe the power dips even more, even though I don't foresee that happening. Or maybe the strikeouts even tick up more because of frustration. We don't know. Elly De La Cruz is the most riskiest pick in that first round. I'd prefer to see him a little bit lower, but I would understand the pick because you're also taking that shot. But anyway, let's flip back. Let's go. Let's talk about Mr. Juan Soto. Now, I don't care where he lands. It is not a precipice of where he lands. It does not matter. Do not get hyper-focused on his landing spot. I don't care if he goes to the Giants and joins Willy Adames. Okay? It don't matter. He is an incredible hitter. He's hitting San Diego, and San Diego is a huge park and did just fine. He's done it in Washington. He's done it with the Yankees. Wherever he goes, he's going to be incredible unless, let's just say, he goes to maybe Toronto. Maybe that's the most least upside. But
or
even
Oakland. Imagine Oakland go signs him.
Honestly, I think Oakland is probably 1 year out from probably making moves.
That's true.
They're going to Vegas now, so things are going to change. They're going to want to invest in the franchise and make that actually a successful franchise now. But that's a whole nother aspect. But Juan Soto, I think it doesn't matter where he lands; it's going to be absolutely incredible. Actually, I'll draft him right behind Bobby Witt. I don't care. He's like my number 3 pick this year for me. I'm all about it. And honestly, I might even bump him up over Witt because Juan Soto's just had such a successful career, and he's also super young. I think he's 26, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 26.
Right? He's 26 years old, but yet he has he's been playing since 2018, which is absolutely bonkers. He is just so good, and there's no question of his ability or anything of the sort. You're going to get 35 to 40 home runs. You're going to hit 300. You're going to get 100 and 100. No matter where he is, because he just creates that ability no matter what. Juan Soto is absolutely phenomenal. Locked and loaded pick. I don't care where he lands.
Yeah, Matt, I'm with you on Soto. I have Soto as my number 3 outfielder going into the season. He's a very, very safe pick. And like you said, the landing spot wherever he goes is going to be good. He's going to drive in a lot of runs, hit a lot of home runs, and hit for batting average. So I'm not even going to really spend more time on here. Let's circle back a smidge, maybe one pick. Let's talk Jose Ramirez. He's coming off the board consensus as the 5th overall player. And he's an interesting name. Jose Ramirez pretty much had a career year last year. He literally almost went 40-40. Cleveland actually missed their last game of the season because it wasn't relevant. They didn't have to make it up. So he did miss the chance to go actually 40-40. I'll read you off his numbers. 158 games to Jose Ramirez last year, 620 at-bats. 114 runs. He hit 39 doubles, 2 triples, 39 homers, 118 RBIs, 41 steals, 54 walks to 82 strikeouts, and he had 279. So, he pretty much sold out for the power last year. You know what? He said, I'm going to take a little bit back on the walks and strikeouts, which probably hurts your points leagues players. But you know what? Batting average is pretty much the same. You got, what's that, 15 more home runs. You got a bunch more steals. The Cleveland was just a better team this year, so the counting stats were great. I like Jose Ramirez a lot. Honestly, the only knock on him is he's getting a little bit older, but I do want to actually look at the underlying stuff for him to just see if he took a step back anywhere. Matt, I don't know if you have any of that pulled up handy.
Yeah,
But
wait, what?
oh yeah, no, I was talking about the underlying stuff for Jose
I
Ramirez,
don't.
but I think I got it right here. Yeah. So he actually did. Some of the underlying stuff doesn't look super sexy. The sprint speed still looks good, a 74th percentile. But when you look at some of like the stuff from a power perspective, it's actually weird to see him take a huge jump in power when the underlying stuff didn't necessarily agree with the huge jump, and he took a step back. And when you're looking at like exit velocity and sweet spot stuff like that, he actually did take a step back from 2023. So it is interesting with Jose Ramirez, but I don't think you need to think too hard about taking him in the first round. I think he is a first round pick. Maybe he falls a little bit below like the Kyle Tuckers, maybe Juan Soto and guys like that. But I do like Jose Ramirez a lot, to be honest with you, and I do have him ranked as my actually number 2 third baseman.
Okay, Dom, question for you. We're in the first round. You're on the clock. You're facing down the barrel. Jose Ramirez or Gunnar Henderson?
Yeah, I love these. You're putting me in you're putting me in tough spots today. You're putting me in tough spots today, but it's a good debate, right? It's good to talk about these names because these are the positions you're going to be in when you get on the clock. I kind of just read you off what Jose Ramirez did, but let's talk about what Gunnar Henderson did at 23 years old. 159 games, 630 at bats, 118 runs, 31 doubles, 37 homers, 92 RBIs, 21 steals, 281 batting average. Yeah, Matt. You know what? If you really put me to it, I probably would go Gunnar. I think Baltimore's a little bit better of a team. They just signed Tyler O'Neill, if nobody has heard that yet. And they're really trying to win. So, and Gunnar, I think, going to be, 24 next year. I think there's another step forward, possibly. So, yeah, I think that's one where I would play the upside game because I don't think it's as risky as taking an Elly De La Cruz. I think Gunnar Henderson's tool set is a little bit more defined where he hit for batting average consistently in the minors, and the power is monstrous. There's not really question marks on the power, so I do like me some Gunnar Henderson there, man. That's a great question.
Yeah, and you touched on it too, like him or Elly De La Cruz, and I think we're both on the same page. I could say Gunnar Henderson.
I have Gunnar Henderson over Elly De La Cruz at shortstop. Yeah,
it's funny. I work with military, so Gunny is actually a nickname for a gun sergeant. So I'm with it. So. Gunnar Henderson, I think is strong as hell. I think he's one of your better picks. I think he's locked and loaded. I pick him over Jose Ramirez too. It's more of I believe Jose Ramirez too was looking for a contract extension. He wanted to be, a lifer and also just get a little bit more of a race. So I think that we might see him, take a dial back and all this stuff to not have to prove it anymore. Which then will also lead to it, and plus the age. So with Gunnar, there's no question surrounding his bat, and that's the argument over Elly De La Cruz. I'm all about it. I want to move on now. Wow, we're actually flying through this episode for once.
Doing pretty good.
So this is where the weird part comes in ADP, at least for me, right? So we've talked about pretty much the top 8. We actually haven't broken that. So now we're gonna look at like 9, 10, 11, and 12. And here's the weirdest part. So you got Mookie Betts, Fernando Tatis, Corbin Carroll, and Julio Rodriguez. Who are we moving up out of those top 2, and who are we top 4, bottom 4, and who are we moving down out of the top 8?
Damn, Matt. So I really like Mookie Betts on this list a lot. I think Mookie Betts is one of those guys, but the Swiss Army knife eligibility is what really puts it over the top. So you can move Mookie around your lineup. He retains eligibility at second base, shortstop, and outfield going into 2025, and he plays for the Dodgers, man. The Dodgers are dodgering. There's already talks about Teoscar Hernandez coming back, and that lineup's going to be filthy. The rotation's stable. And I think Mookie Betts just being like a staple right in the middle of that lineup. I don't know if it's going to be the super sexy numbers as Mookie Betts, continues to age. So I don't know if we're going to, you look back at, not last season, but 2023 with the 39 homers. I don't know if he repeats that again, but I think, if he plays 150 plus games, you see 30 homers, you see double-digit steals, you see a really strong batting average and counting stats. So, honestly, Matt, I would say this. I honestly think if Mookie didn't have second, short, and outfield, he might slide down this list a little bit, but the eligibility is what really puts him over the top for me.
Yeah, I mean, the pace last year was incredible, but he is hitting age 31. Never really had an injury history, so I'm not really willing to give him a discount, truthfully. I think I'd probably draft him over Jose Ramirez. I think Jose Ramirez takes another step
Oof.
down. I think Mookie Betts, not only because of the Swiss Army knife aspect of it, but just, he's been consistent, whereas Jose Ramirez has had his down years where he hasn't had an ROI, return on investment, for everybody, if you haven't heard me earlier, where, like, Ramirez was the top 3 pick, and then he kind of finished as, like, the 13th or 14th pick. Mookie Betts pretty much finishes, even on an injury year, when he plays, as a top 10 pick. And that's where I like it. You want to get your return on investment. That is Mookie Betts. I feel he moves up, not much higher, right? And then also, too, like Fernando Tatis, I just want to do an honorable mention before we kind of get out of here. I think he also moves up above, Jose Ramirez, on terms of, like, you look at upside play, who's actually on their way up, whereas trending down, and it's the other way around, right? Fernando Tatis is, still is entering his prime years, and I think has a 40-30 season on the way with at least a 275 batting average. And I like the team that he's on. Whereas Ramirez, one, has nobody around him, and two, is hitting those latter years of his career. And at any moment, that ROI can drop even a hair too drastically. Now, nothing indicates that, but again, when I'm talking about getting returning investment in the early parts of the draft, especially the first round, I got to take my swing at somebody that I think is going to be, especially later in this draft. I think the other two are placed perfectly for Corbin, Carroll, and Julio Rodriguez. I could totally see them falling into the second round, depending on people's opinions. But yeah, that's really it. You want to give a quick wrap up, and then we'll get out of here of, like, your last, how you feel and how I did.
I'll talk about Carroll and Julio real quick, because I think he did a good job on everybody else. With Carroll, he finished strong in the second half. I think he rebounds and is worth a borderline first round pick. Julio, I think, is still a star. I think Julio, if you take him at the end of the first round, you're going to be highly, highly rewarded. I think he has top 5 upside, and we'll just have to see if he can stay healthy for a whole season and really just keep it rocking and rolling. But that's my thoughts on that. But guys, that is all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Shout out to our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And guys, after you make us your first listen, go check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB and make him your second listen. He does a great job over there. But guys, until next time. See ya.
Peace.